Well, I know you'll all be missing me. Hopefully I'm in the shot today and I'm not having a headshot. I've had a bit of a run of headshots, and basically until I get me mate around here and get on the camera, probably going to be a few more headshots. But the truth of the matter is I'm not really caring about the headshots information. Today I'm going to talk about a couple of points. The first one is the Iron Horse chopper. We got the tank back, got it back on the bike, and went for a warrant. Got its warrant, straight through warrant, and she's going sweet, except it's throwing a lot of oil out of the breathers on the engine, so I'm going to have a look at the breather valves on the top of the engine. Other than that, she's ready to go. I'll probably do a video on it another time. Next time I'm just a bit bloody flat out at the moment, as always. So, new angle, new bench. Today I want to talk to you about hanger brackets on Hiluxes, which most of you, because you're tuned into the Harleys, will probably turn off, but which is all good. I'm just trying to pass information. This is what you call a drive shaft hanger bearing, and it goes halfway up the drive shaft on a Hilux. And what it does is it's rubber mounted. It takes the vibration out of the drive shaft, and it gives extra support because the drive shaft's so long. And this one, I've decided to do a few things different, and I thought you might be interested. If you're someone like me who does his own repairs, this might be interesting on your Hiluxes. Anyway, let's get on with it. So what I've done is I've painted it with some zinc spray because it was a bit it's an aftermarket part and it was a bit miserable. So what I've done this time round is, if you see in here, I've popped the actual seal out the side of the bearing, right? And the reason why I've done this is because the grease that they put in those bearings, I don't know whether you can see it in there. I'll see if I can just... Okay. So the grease in there is what I call, I don't know, they'll tell you it's a special sort of bearing grease, blah, blah, blah. But to me, it just looks like Vaseline, and it'll clap out. So what I've done is I've popped those seals out on both sides. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to fill half of this cavity up with grease in here, right? And that will ensure on both sides, and that will ensure that it actually gets grease for the next 10 years, whereas they've put those seals in there, and if you don't know what the seal is, it's this thin piece here what goes in the side of the bearing, right? Now it won't interfere with the rubber mount because that's actually a solid piece of steel inside the rubber. And before I took these out, in one particular place I could actually see past this, right? The other thing is that these things have got their own seal in the side here, you see? So really, unless you're using your truck like a boat, when I say like a boat going through rivers or all the time, even that, like the amount of Ks I get out of one of these has not been very good. And I'm picking, if I fill this up with grease, you can see here on that side I've already filled it. Let's have a look. See if I can, you see that? I've already filled it up on that side. The other thing is these are very bad at seizing onto the drive shaft, and I had to actually chop the old one off. And with the grease in there, put grease in there, grease in here on both sides before I put it back onto the drive shaft. Now, I'm going to take you over here. Now this is where it slides on, okay? And one thing that what I realised today, oh, damn it. What I realised today is that this is where the other seal runs up on here. One side runs on the hang on a minute, I'll just pause it and go and get it so you know what I'm talking about. Where's the pause? Right, back again. So what I was saying was this is the end of the drive shaft where the hanger bearing goes on. So just so everyone's clear, the hanger bearing goes on like so, through and on there, right? And you see that seal here. It's a seal there, and that runs up in here, right? So when you put your new one on, you've got to make sure there's no crap up in here, right? Because it'll just chew your seal out straight away. And what I'm going to do is probably put some more grease in there, in that cover, because it's probably the rust. The water, you know, the rust will chew it out as well. If there's grease in there, it won't. Now, the other side is this part here, you see? And that goes on, slides on there, and that hanger bearing gets sandwiched between. Now, you can see here, that surface is looking pretty good, but you still want to check it and make sure it's smooth, and if it is a bit rough, get in there and smooth it off with a bit of like 2000 grit, wet and dry or something. And then make sure all of this has got plenty of grease, right? There's lots and lots of mechanics putting stuff together on this. I had to cut the old bearing off with the gas torch, right? That's how bad it was. There's a bit of it here to rip the rubber off, yeah, and then cut the actual bearing sleeve off the drive shaft, right? And all of that is because some silly person didn't use any lubricant to put it in, and there's lots of mechanics doing that now. Same with these, right? You can see here how this flange has been fitted, and they haven't put any grease between the flange, right, where the other piece bolts up to it. And that's just absolutely crazy. You want to put I'll buff this, and then I'll bolt it back on, and then I'll put a run of grease in there. So when I come to taking it off, it'll come straight off, not have to, you know, because it will actually, in New Zealand here, where there's a lot of, let's see if I can do this. In New Zealand here, there's a lot of salt water. Oh, there's a lot of salt water. So you've got to put grease in between things like that. Otherwise, you'll just rust and turn into a big block of, you know, shit. So the other thing I wanted to talk to you today about is something that I discovered on my Hilux a while back. My other Hilux has got a 2 or 3 inch lift kit in it, and something that was very important I sorted out a couple of years ago, which I want to pass this information on to everyone. So it's important because I believe a lot of guys have probably killed themselves or actually hurt themselves really bad because of it. I'm just going to pause it and go outside. Right, here we are again, back under the old, this is a 4x4 Hilux, and this, oh God, this lever here is what they call a balancing valve lever, right? And what it does is I don't know if I can show you. I should have dropped the tyre off. Up in there, see that thing where that rod goes up? That's called the balancing valve, right? And what that does is, because on these old trucks what have the drum brakes on the back, because the drum brakes are very sensitive, a lot more sensitive than the discs on the front, what happens is they've got to reduce the flow of oil to the back brakes, right? And this distance of this here is quite critical, right? And what the problem is that guys put lift kits into their truck. I'm going to pause it again. Right, here we go again. You see now, this is the old grey truck, and I'm struggling because it's afternoon. Now you can see here, this is what you call a lift kit. You see the back of the springs here. You see, and when they put a lift kit in, they have to put a bolt in the middle here to stop it splaying. And you can see the distance of that hanger is quite a bit. But what they've been doing is overlooking is this, they've not been lengthening the balancing valve rod, okay? And if you don't do that, I'm gonna have to get out of the heat. That's a better picture of, I'll just see if I can, there it is there, you see that's the balancing valve, right? Now, I've just sorted the problem with this truck, and it took me years, right? And what I had to do is actually make a special balancing valve. I've had to increase this balancing rod, right? Because if you don't, right, I'm going to pause it and go inside. All right. Hopefully I'm in the shop. So what I was trying to explain to you is the difference between those balancing valves on that back axle, and how it works is quite simple. As when you load the back of the truck, as you put the load on it, the suspension, the distance between the truck and the suspension gets smaller, you see, as the springs go down. And then that lever goes up, and it actually opens the balancing valve, right? So more oil can flow through to the back brakes on the truck, right? And what the problem was with my grey truck is every time I put a load on the back or a trailer on the back, what would happen is that you would come up to a corner and you would work the brakes, but because it had a lift kit put into it, the only the front brakes on the vehicle were working, you see. So when you came up to a corner, if you could imagine, this spanner is the back of the spanner here is the back of the truck, and the trailer, my finger is the trailer. When you come up to a corner, if you brake coming up to a corner, the trailer is trying to push the back end of the truck around, and that's because the back brakes weren't working, right? And that's because they hadn't increased that balancing valve length, right? And without that length being adjusted, what was happening is that it's trying to push the back of the truck around like that when you use the brakes. Now, there'll be, as soon as a lot of the guys, I'm going to try and remember to put this on the Hilux page, but a lot of guys who have got Hilux with these lift kits will know straight away, the penny will drop, because it's like, as soon as that you put that lift kit into your truck, the brakes are different, they're not so responsive, and that's the way to fix it, okay? And the way to fix it is, like I said before, you've got to measure your old shackles, and you've got to measure the new shackles, and it's the distance, the extra amount what you've put in your shackles from the standard ones, you've got it added into that balancing valve. And if you don't, you've got a death trap waiting for you, because basically, even without a trailer, if you just load the back of that truck, because what used to happen, I used to load the back of that truck with firewood, with like half a ton of firewood, and then I would come to a corner, and you'd be coming up to the corner, and you go, oh, I'm going too fast. You hit the brakes, and then straight away you could feel the back of the truck trying to come around go sideways. And for years I was like, what the bloody hell's going on here? And when I finished my trade, because if you didn't know, I'm a heavy automotive engineer, and part of doing those trades is you've got to study brakes and brake systems, and balancing valves were part of the units. And that's when the penny dropped what was going on, because I was looking at my truck one day and I was like, oh, hang on a minute, they've increased the shackles on the springs, but they haven't increased the balancing valve, so the back brakes are not working whatsoever when it's loaded. So some information for you. And there's a point I would like to make here also, is it's not just Hiluxes, right? It's any truck like that with that setup, and I'm pretty sure Nissans, and I would be very surprised, probably Chev and a few others have them as well, because a lot of this stuff on these jack trucks originated off the Chev, off the Americans. So anyway, I hope this information is helpful, and keep cool.